Hello to you, this is RoxomTV, live from London. I'm Connor Sephton. Here are the stories we're following today. Nuclear talks between Iran and the US end after less than 4 hours. We'll find out why that's a bad sign. A row breaks out over how prediction markets should be regulated, as some politicians claim they're destroying the lives of countless Americans. A Bitcoin-friendly political party is ahead in the opinion polls here in the UK, but we'll explain why Nigel Farage faces big challenges in his campaign to be Prime Minister. Also coming up, a Red Bull athlete makes aviation history during a daring stunt in Turkey. And does crypto have a credibility for sale problem? We'll be delving into the murky world of press releases. All that and more coming up in the next hour. It's Wednesday, the 18th of February. And if there's anything you'd like us to cover, do get in touch. Promise, we're friendly. You can find us on X at Connor Sephton and at RoxomTV. Well, we begin today with the high-stakes negotiations that took place between the US and Iran yesterday. The direct talks had aimed to resolve a bitter dispute over Tehran's nuclear program. Just before negotiations began in Geneva, Iran had temporarily closed the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow waterway. Footage has emerged of the Iranian military conducting live-fire exercises. Well, oil prices slid to a 2-week low as traders digested the news. The Trump administration has made military threats if a deal isn't reached soon, moving warships into the region. But it's fair to say Tehran is keen to reach a resolution as its economy struggles under the weight of sanctions. Iran said it's reached an understanding on the guiding principles needed to clinch an agreement, but admitted more work needs to be done. The US also said progress was made. Here's what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say.
The United States has certain red lines. Our primary interest here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, there are a lot of other regimes, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them. That would be a disaster for the American people, because then you have these crazy regimes all over the world with the most dangerous weapons in the world, and that's one of the things the president has said he's going to prevent. Now, we would very much like, as the president has said, to resolve this through a conversation and a diplomatic negotiation, but the president has all options on the table. And, one thing about the negotiation I will say this morning is, in some ways it went well. They agreed to meet afterwards, but in other ways it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it, but of course the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point, but if we do, that'll be the president's call.
There are mixed signals coming out of Iran right now. The country's president insists Tehran will never abandon its peaceful nuclear program. But, as we've just heard J.D. Vance say, there are fears its stockpiles could be used for other purposes. The talks lasted for just 3.5 hours. Ali Vaez is an Iran expert from the International Crisis Group, and he says that's not a good sign.
It's hard to be optimistic about these negotiations that wrapped up so quickly. These are extremely complex subjects. Remember that it took 2.5 years to negotiate the 2015 nuclear deal. These talks usually require a lot of patience, a lot of focus, a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussions with experts. So if they wrap up this quickly, it's either a sign that the negotiators don't have the patience that is required to reach an agreement, or that the gaps are simply too big to be bridged. But when it gets to other non-nuclear questions, like regional activities or their missile program, I think at best the Iranians would be willing to do superficial concessions, not the kind of grand bargain capitulation that the United States expects. And then there are also significant disagreements about the substance of negotiations. And that is why, even if you reach a framework, it would still take a long time to hammer out the details of an agreement.
Now, a huge row has broken out over how prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi should be regulated in the US. These websites allow users to place bets on the outcome of certain events. There are markets for practically everything, including football games, Bitcoin's price, and politics. But the companies have attracted criticism for accepting wagers on world news, including things like whether the US will strike Iran. Amid accusations, this amounts to profiting off the misery of everyday people. Well, the chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission has now said it should be his agency's responsibility to regulate, and states should back off.
Over the past year, American prediction markets have been hit with an onslaught of state-led litigation. In response, the CFTC has today filed a friend of the court brief to defend its exclusive jurisdiction over these derivative markets. Prediction markets aren't new. The CFTC has regulated these markets for over 2 decades. They provide useful functions for society by allowing everyday Americans to hedge commercial risks like increases in temperature and energy price spikes. They also serve as an important check on our news media and our information streams. Today, the CFTC is taking an important step to ensure that these markets have a place here in America and have the integrity and resilience and vibrancy that our derivatives markets deserve. To those who seek to challenge our authority in this space, let me be clear. We will see you in court.
This video has attracted fury from several states. Utah Governor Spencer Cox is also vowing to take the CFTC to court and says prediction markets are destroying the lives of families and countless Americans, especially young men. In his view, these websites offer gambling, pure and simple, and should be treated that way. That's a view shared by former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
These markets have now come in and said, we don't care about your laws. We're not going to comply with them. They don't apply to us because we're not bets. Well, go on the prediction markets and tell me, you look at the website. If it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. And so they're absolutely, flouting the law, bad for consumers, bad for the sports, and bad for the individual states. We got to protect teenagers from being marketed to by these prediction markets. We've got to make sure that we don't have them having folks with inside information that could, in fact, affect the integrity of the games that everyone's betting on. We set this up in a very careful way. That's what we told the courts we would do if we did this. And now these guys are like rogue cowboys, Major, coming in and saying the laws don't apply to us. And I think they want to kind of become a fait accompli. Like, we're here, so what are you going to do with us now? And I don't want to get rid of them, Major. If they want to do sports bets, just come and get licensed and regulated in the states.
So, figures suggest a substantial amount of accounts on prediction markets lose money. Blockchain analysis suggests only 30% have made a net profit. And while the CFTC insists prediction markets serve as an important check on the news media, figures suggest prediction markets aren't really being used this way. 90% of the bets made on Kalshi are related to sport. Some critics also claim the Trump administration is too close to this industry. The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., recently became a Polymarket advisor, and the company's making a return to the US. Allegations have also been made about insider trading. A clip of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt abruptly ending a briefing went viral. She stopped speaking just before the 65-minute mark, and some Kalshi traders ended up losing a lot of money.
In November of last year. And so I would encourage everyone to take a look at the website. It's quite well done. And thank you all very much. It's great to be back with you.
Thank you.
So, just going to bring you some bits of breaking news that we're receiving. The first one is that 6 Palestine Action activists are going to be facing a retrial. This is related to criminal damage charges over a break-in at the UK base of an Israel-based defence firm. Now, Palestine Action was in the news quite a lot last week because there was a court case about whether it should have been prescribed as a terrorist organisation. A court has now ruled that it shouldn't be. And that means that for now, police officers are going to stop arresting people who are protesting out in support of this group. So that's the first bit of news we're receiving there. Meanwhile, the headquarters of France's hard-left party, France Unbowed, have been evacuated after a bomb threat. There's very little information we've got on this, but police are currently at the scene. And lastly, I just want to tell you about Chancellor Rachel Reeves. She's just said that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, that's former Prince Andrew, owes it to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein to come forward and speak about what he knows. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been under pressure to testify before Congress about his links to the convicted paedophile, especially in light of the Epstein files. But at the moment, there is no sign that he's planning to testify. Well, today we're going to focus on British politics. With the Labour government battled by multiple controversies, a relatively new right-wing movement's looking to gain momentum. Reform UK's headed up by Nigel Farage, and at an event, he told voters getting the party ready to lead is now a priority.
Whilst it may be true that the Conservative Party have more MPs in Westminster than we do, although our numbers are growing quite steadily, there is no question, given that we've now led for the last 200 opinion polls in a row, given that our average lead is between 9 and 10%, that in the country we are the voice of opposition to this government. And so it's time for the party to take the next step. Too often, the criticism over the last 20 months has been that we're a one-man band. To which I generally respond by saying, well, it's better than being a no-man band. But the time has come to broaden the party, to put in place people in shadow positions, and that process begins today.
Nigel Farage is a dominant figure within Reform UK, and many do say he is a one-man band. And it's clear this conference was an attempt to project some depth. The right-wing Conservatives were in power for 14 years before Labour's landslide win last summer, but saw their share of the vote collapse after countless scandals during the coronavirus pandemic, especially. A number of politicians from the Conservatives have defected to Reform in recent months, leading to criticism that Nigel Farage's party will amount to more of the same. Tories in disguise is the criticism that we're hearing. But Nigel Farage insists politicians with past government experience will be incredibly valuable.
People like Richard Tice and myself, we've not been in number 10, we've never been on the front line. We need people who've been there and who know how it works, or perhaps more accurately, how and why it doesn't work. And then we'll be looking, and we started this process last year, and it's going on today. We then need people who are genuine experts in their area to take junior ministerial positions, because frankly, the lack of real-world experience in government is being felt by every business in the land.
Well, 2 Tory defectors, Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman, are going to be part of this top team. Jenrick will be Reform's economics spokesperson and was referred to during the event as its shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. That title isn't possible, by the way. Only the Conservatives, they're the second largest party in Parliament right now, can have a shadow chancellor. Anyway, in other words, he's a finance minister in waiting. He set out some of his priorities.
Together, we are going to build an economy that serves alarm clock Britain. The people who got up early this morning to go to work, to look after their family, the people who want a hand up, not a hand out. People who just want to get on in life, who want to feel better off. And there's no shame in that. We're going to ensure that you can keep more of your money, that the state stops taking your money and wasting it, spraying it around without any regard for how hard you worked to earn it and your own interests. More than any party, we are going to take care with your money. We're going to look after your money as you would. And we're going to work hard every single day between now and the general election and thereafter, if we're lucky enough to be entrusted with leading this country forwards.
Now, it is true Reform UK are ahead in the opinion polls. You can see this just on the screen now. These are the latest figures from YouGov talking about who Britons would vote for if there was an election tomorrow. And the thin blue line at the top, that's Reform. They're currently on 24%. Labour and the Conservatives, they're pretty neck and neck on 19% and 18% respectively. And then lagging behind there are the Liberal Democrats. So that's a flavour of where the opinion polls are right now. And yes, Labour and the Conservatives, they are lagging behind. But big challenges do stand in Nigel Farage's way, despite these opinion polls. For one, the next election is only due in 2029. That means Reform needs to keep up this momentum for 3 more years. There's also a decent chance the right-wing vote could be split between Reform and the Conservatives, denying Farage from getting the keys to 10 Downing Street. The UK Electoral system's another issue, as results are decided based on local areas rather than the country as a whole. That means Reform would need to win 326 seats in order for Farage's party to have a majority. In the last election, Reform received more than 4 million votes, but only 5 of its MPs were elected. The left-leaning Liberal Democrats won 72 seats with just 3.5 million votes, and that's because their supporters were more concentrated in certain areas. All of this makes Reform's path to power exceptionally challenging, with the party's policies on immigration and healthcare attracting criticism too. Well, there's a Bitcoin element to all of this. Reform recently unveiled a set of pro-crypto policies that would include a big cut to capital gains tax on digital assets, as well as the creation of a sovereign Bitcoin fund. We're seeing parallels with the pledges that brought Donald Trump to power, and some deep-pocketed crypto millionaires are lining up to make donations. The Bitcoin Reserve wasn't mentioned in yesterday's press conference. We'll have to see if it remains a priority. But Nigel Farage did share his views recently in a Bloomberg interview.
Well, given what a catastrophe UK economic policy has been over the last 15 years, I think we should challenge every single tenet of it. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, look, we vote Brexit. Now, if you vote Brexit, use it as an opportunity to do things differently. And the trouble is, from day one, the Conservative government viewed it as a damage limitation exercise, as opposed to an opportunity. Take the whole world of cryptocurrencies and crypto trading, and we are just lagging so far behind many other parts of the world, and yet the FCA don't want to know, frankly, the Bank of England don't want to know. There was even a proposal from Bailey just recently to restrict the number of stable coins any individual can hold. So you see, I'm talking about having people, the governor of the Bank of England, I'm not questioning the independence of it. What I am saying is that we need a new, more innovative approach to all of this.
You're watching RoxomTV. Now, the police have warned child sexual abuse in the UK is soaring. 1,000 people suspected of being paedophiles are now being arrested each month. The National Crime Agency says artificial intelligence is partly to blame. Some algorithms are also pushing abusive material to people who have shown a previous interest in it. Experts say offenders are also being radicalised online and being told it's normal to view images of abuse.
The online threat of child sexual abuse in the UK is growing. We estimate that there are between 710 and 840,000 UK-based adults that pose varying degrees of risk to children. These are staggering numbers. Child sexual abuse affects every community in the UK, and it is really important that we get those messages out to our communities about the threat that our children face. The severity of what we're seeing in terms of child sexual abuse is increasing. The Internet Watch Foundation, which monitors online activity, are increasingly detecting Category A images of child sexual abuse material. That's the most severe imagery. And since 2017, those numbers of detections of child sexual abuse material have doubled.
Tech companies have been told they're doing nowhere near enough to deal with this issue. There's also doubt that banning under 16s from using social media would make much of a difference. Some illegal websites even host live streams of children being abused, with access bought using cryptocurrencies for as little as $27. A Champions League game between Real Madrid and Benfica was stopped for several minutes last night after a racist slur was allegedly directed at one of the players. Vinicius Jr. complained to the referee and claimed the comment was made by rival player Gianluca Prestiani. He's denied saying something racist and insists the remark was misinterpreted. Vinny Jr. later wrote on social media about the incident and said this has happened repeatedly on the pitch. He described racists as cowards who often go unpunished. Racism in football has been a long-running issue. A couple of years ago, the sports journalist Darren Lewis said the current way of tackling the problem isn't fit for purpose.
I would contend with anybody who would suggest to me that football is okay. It doesn't have a racism crisis. In England, it has a racism crisis. In Europe, it has a racism crisis. In world football, it has a racism crisis. And the only way to address it is to leave the field of play. Not because you want to cause a problem for fans, either players, whoever else, but the facts are that when you go to work, you should not have to play in a situation like that.
Now, a shocking new study's revealed that an excruciatingly painful tropical disease can now be transmitted by mosquitoes here in Europe. Higher temperatures linked to climate change are being blamed, meaning chikungunya cases are possible for half of the year in Spain and Greece, and 2 months of the year in the southeast of England. Scientists are worried the virus could spread further north in the years to come. Chikungunya was first detected in the 1950s, and there are millions of cases a year in tropical regions. Jacqueline Stevens is an epidemiologist.
It's spread through the bite of mosquitoes, and we see it predominantly in the tropics. It's caused really by 2 particular mosquitoes. They're called Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus.
And what are the symptoms that people start to feel when they've been infected?
Yeah, so the infection is caused by, as I said, a virus, and it has a very quick incubation period and causes the symptoms of fever, pain and joint pains, mostly in our sort of extremities, in our fingers, arms, wrists, ankles. And we feel quite unwell. It's, as you said before, it's fairly mild for most people, but it can be more severe and it can cause long-term joint pain for some people.
Meanwhile, a scientific paper's warned man-made climate change made 2024's devastating floods in Spain worse. At least 230 people died in Valencia, with the torrential downpours causing over $34 billion in damage. Roads, bridges and even flood barriers collapsed. Some areas saw 10 times more rain in a few hours than they'd usually see in a month. Let's take a look at some other news now. Shia LaBeouf has been arrested after allegedly assaulting 2 men during Mardi Gras celebrations in New Orleans. It's claimed the actor had spent the long weekend partying across the city and became aggressive in a bar. LaBeouf allegedly tried to hit the manager after being cut off from buying more drinks. He's accused of hitting a customer who tried to help and punching another man on the nose. He was held down by bystanders until police arrived. A wealthy man who used to be a senior bank executive has been banned from taking the train. Joseph Malloy's been convicted of using a sophisticated ticketing scam to reduce the cost of his journeys to work by thousands of pounds. A court was told he used this fraud 740 times while travelling to and from his £2 million home in London. He narrowly avoided jail and was handed a suspended sentence and 80 hours of community service. A prisoner's absconded from a hospital in London for the second time in a week. Detectives are now searching for Daniel Boitkier, who staged his latest escape on Sunday. He was serving a jail sentence for conspiracy to commit robbery. A number of inmates have managed to escape custody from UK prisons in recent months. And speaking of British problems, potholes, large craters on the road are another common issue. CCTV footage has emerged of a man on an e-scooter crashing hard after hitting a pothole outside a pub in Oxford.
Yeah, he went right on the edge of it. Yeah.
The poor guy lost consciousness after the accident and needed to be taken to hospital. He suffered a bloody nose and mouth but was discharged later that night. Now, a Red Bull athlete has just made aviation history. Dario Costa completed a daring double manoeuvre in Turkey, landing his race aircraft on a moving cargo train and then lifting off again in a vertical pull. Wow, and if that doesn't look scary enough, the Italian pilot had to land blind. He had centimetres of margin for error and needed to make contact with the tiny runway and then take off again within 50 seconds. Dario's described the stunt as one of the most challenging and demanding projects of his career.
It was a tough one, was very challenging, difficult, was long no sleep nights, but yeah, was a good experience. So the whole thing was like a little bit of a huge incognita, and we had to reshape the way of flying. The most difficult thing of this project was landing blind. They need to land blind on a very small moving runway. This was I think mentally this was the hardest thing to accept for me, and to learn. The weather, the wind conditions, everything was a variable that we had to take into account. And then we had to study all the turbulences that were coming out from the train wake. So we had to learn what was going to happen once I was touching the container.
Amazing footage, isn't it? I can't even drive a car. You're watching Roxom TV. Coming up after the break, we'll be delving into the murky world of crypto press releases.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index, it's collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Fuck. Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, then I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
You're watching Roxom TV. Let's take a look at some of the day's main Bitcoin stories now. And the market's looking flat as a pancake this morning. Stuck at $68,000. Bitcoin struggling to regain momentum after briefly topping $70,000 over the weekend. Some analysts believe the recent sideways action could mean the world's biggest cryptocurrency has bottomed out, though. And a quick look at how exchange-traded funds tracking Bitcoin's spot price on Wall Street are doing. Outflows stood at $104.8 million on Tuesday. Pretty modest overall. We have seen worse. Monday was a public holiday in the US, so we haven't had figures on that in a little while. A new report suggests there was a huge shift in Bitcoin ownership last year. Individual investors still have the most, but their holdings fell by about 696,000 coins in 2025. A report by River says institutional investors are picking up the slack. Businesses added 489,000 coins to their balance sheet, with funds and ETFs gaining 205,000. The current cycle has been dominated by a lack of involvement from everyday consumers. Now, a new study suggests the vast majority of crypto press releases are linked to high-risk or scam projects. Chain Story analysed thousands of announcements and is warning bad actors are making their way onto reputable news sites by spending a few $1,000s.
In 2021, a press release claimed Walmart would accept Litecoin. No confirmation, no verification. Within minutes, Litecoin surged roughly 30%. Then Walmart responded. It was fake. One unchecked announcement was enough to move markets and force a Fortune 500 company to issue a denial. On Christmas Eve, a press release claimed Circle, the issuer of USDC, launched a platform for tokenized gold and silver. Circle branding, executive quotes, professional language. It was fake. Circle confirmed it to CoinDesk. The unknown website asked users to connect their wallets, a classic setup for what appears to be a scam. Same pattern as Litecoin, more sophisticated execution. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a system designed to publish first and ask questions later. Because in crypto, press release distributions bypass editorial newsrooms. They go straight to the public. If you pay, you publish. And the responsibility for truth? It's pushed entirely onto the issuer. We analyzed about 3,000 crypto press releases published over a 4-month period. Roughly 62% came from projects flagged as high risk or outright scams. Bad actors aren't avoiding press releases, they're flooding them. In this environment, press releases don't measure success. They manufacture it at scale. Because press releases don't just influence perception, they influence behavior. They trigger automated trades. They signal something is happening. And in crypto, that combination is dangerous. When advertising looks like news, and news requires no verification, the next scam doesn't start with code. It starts with a headline. You might be able to tell when a published press release raises red flags. But what about media illiterate people? Older generations, perhaps. Your uncle who believes anything he reads on the internet. This is a conversation worth having. Dive into our report for our findings. The next scam won't announce itself. It'll have a press release, professional branding, partnership announcements, and it'll look exactly like news.
Fascinating report. Well, I'm joined now by Tal Harrell. He's the co-CEO of Chain Story PR, which produced this research. Tal, great to have you with us on RoxomTV.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So, why is this such a problem? What's the big deal?
So, bottom line of what we found was there's a loophole. There's a loophole where scams are manipulating the end reader through news wires. At the end of the day, that's the bottom line. We saw that with a couple of cases. I think one person who, one of the earliest people to talk about that was Hannah Miller from Bloomberg. She saw two companies using fake press releases to build their credibility. She found one of these companies shared a press release saying they raised 12 million US dollars from Binance, I think. Other one partnered with many infamous names in crypto, all to make you or the end users think we are legit. That's what we found. We went through basically 3,000 press releases across a time period of 4 months, 4.5 months, which itself is a big number, if you ask me. And that's the bottom line of what we found. We found that 62% of all of these releases came from either scams or high-risk projects.
So talk to me about these definitions. So how were you defining a scam or a high-risk crypto project here?
So that's something we used in the methodology of our report, we define what's a scam is either something which is legally a scam, something the authorities themselves called a project a scam, or a high risk project is something there's a lot of red flags around that. Could be red flags risen on various social media, either by ZachXBT or other figures raising these flags, where we're not outright saying they are scams, but something something people should be aware of. All of these are obviously, we triple checked and used a very strict methodology of what do we call a scam, what do we call promoting, what do we call every one of these things we defined in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've come across this issue as a journalist and I've seen a press release and kind of thought, this is a bit suspicious. So I remember a few years ago, I was writing about a company called Edge, and they'd said, oh, we've released a confidential MasterCard with no know your customer checks, and you'll be able to use MasterCard anonymously. And it didn't pass the smell test, right? It didn't seem true. So I went to MasterCard and went, have you actually approved this project? And they said, no. So it is a recurring problem, and it has been for some time. So talk to me though, what are the motives? What do they get from releasing these dodgy press releases? What's the incentive?
So I want to go over a couple of forces, if you can call them that. One is traditional media, using a company, PR person, pitching. You as a journalist, you know that. Most pitches you get are not interesting. They do not pass either because, A, they're not interesting, company is not big enough, or market is leaning towards other things. And for some companies, this doesn't cut, this isn't enough at the end of the day. I don't want to be pitched. I want to be there. I want to be on leading media outlets, which is why this process is bad for them. They often turn to newswires, which promote themselves as guaranteed placements. Some of them call that coverage as well, but guaranteed is the prime word here. But they don't necessarily say this comes with the cost of the sponsored tag. And something we've seen, I think, for the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, the sponsor tagged and many media outlets has become very, very small or very, very vague. It's not a blatant, this was, I think Coindesk does a very good job with sponsoring, with labeling them. You can't miss that. This was paid for by. In some cases, I don't know if the average Joe can understand he's reading basically an ad about the company. And that's the motive. I don't want to wait for an editor's approval. Maybe Trump will say something about crypto and my pitch will be sent to the basically will get a no. I don't want to wait for anyone. I want to be out there. I want to put on my website as seen on, sorry, I don't know, various media sites, media outlets that I can so I can share that with my potential investors, potential users, or whatever. Issue is, it sounds a bit naive, but issue is companies, scammers are using that as well as loopholes. Some of the things you'll see on as press releases is high APYs, sorry, or insane returns, or things like that that you and I both know makes no sense. It's not a real thing.
So when you released this report earlier this month, some crypto news sites wrote it up, but then they took down their news stories later on. What's going on there?
Honestly, that's a great question. I think one of the sites that covered that talked about that issue was Being Crypto. They talked about how, like you said, many media outlets covered that our report, but some of them not pointing fingers, not naming names, but some of them removed the coverage of that report. And my guess is as good as yours. Probably some leverage was in place, and probably people did not like that on the sales department of these media outlets, and that's what caused, again, my guess. I don't know exactly what happened there, but there's not a lot of room for imagination in there.
So I guess it's a tricky situation because on one hand, we're in a bear market, and it's a difficult time to be a crypto news publication, and oftentimes publishing press releases can be a valuable source of revenue for these organisations that allows them to hire journalists and write stories that their readers care about. But equally, your research has shown that there are problems here and things need to change. Is there anything that these news publications can do differently?
At the end of the day, it's a business. Media outlets are businesses as much as any other businesses, and you're right. They don't run pro bono. It's not a charity work. They are looking to make sure someone keeps the lights on, and that's a massive issue for media outlets even before the bear market. But I'm not saying publishing sponsored articles or press releases is necessarily a bad thing. All I'm saying is there needs to be a proper disclose for that. It's not me saying that. It's an FTC guidelines that I think most of them are either unaware of or just don't care because the money talks.
And lastly, Tal, what's your advice for consumers? Anyone who's out there and comes across one of these press releases, should people just be a bit skeptical of what they're reading, perhaps?
Yes. At the end of the day, I'm not even expecting from the end user to dive into and see and look for disclaimers all across. People don't. I'm assuming most people don't even read past a title to look for these disclaimers. What I'm saying is you have to understand. There's a recent case where a fake press release was shared on not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, from Circle. Not sure if you probably remember that one. A company said it was Circle, gave fake quotes as if it was Circle, and addressed people to go to a site that connected, asking them to connect their wallets. Assuming, again, I'm not aware of that, but assuming if you would connect your wallet, you would be drained from that wallet. So that's something you have to keep in mind. I'm not even saying this could manipulate what you think about a certain company. that could outright steal, take away your crypto, your hard work crypto, and that's something you have to keep in mind. Now, I'm not saying stop reading news and use social media instead, because many people are doing that and consuming news on Twitter because it's very comfortable to see to do a thing to do. But on the flip side, many of what we see on X or other media outlets, other social media platforms, is unvetted as well. What the end users can do, there's no other choice other than being more critical of what you're reading. I don't know, ask a friend, make sure what you're reading is not labeled as such. Go verify with another source, something I like with Ground News, for example. They compare multiple sources, and I think if we don't start doing that as users, we're going to be scammed. You're going to be scammed, you're going to be manipulated in some sort, and that's something we try to tell, I try to tell people around us. Make sure at least, I don't know, with another source, at least one other, that what you're reading is indeed what's happening, because we don't actually know that for, not only in crypto, we don't know that for anything, basically.
Mm-hmm. Tal, thank you so much for talking to us. Fascinating research, and look forward to talking to you again on the show soon. Thank you very much, Tal Harel there. The pleasure, the co-CEO of Chain Story PR on dodgy press releases. Let's take a look at some business news now. The annual rate of inflation in the UK, measured through the Consumer Price Index, has fallen to its lowest level since last March. It now stands at 3%, which remains above the target of 2%. Falls in the cost of petrol, plane tickets and some food items contributed to the improving figures. Market watchers now say there's an 81% chance that the Bank of England will cut interest rates by 1/4 percentage point, and that's good news for savers. The FTSE 100 also hit a record high at the start of Wednesday's trading.
Just to be clear, prices are still going up. It's just that the rate that they're going up is getting slower,
which is absolutely what we want to see. And it's interesting because this is a gradual trend that we've seen for some months now. So the idea is that we're thinking in the UK, inflation is certainly headed in the right direction and may have even been tamed, which is what the Bank of England will be assessing. Of course, this time yesterday we had the jobs news, which was not good at all. We saw an increase in the number of people out of work, especially young people. So there's all these factors to think about at the Bank of England when they meet to decide on interest rates.
Christine Lagarde may leave her role as president of the European Central Bank before the end of her 8-year term. It's due to expire in October 2027. The FT's reporting she wants to step down before the French presidential election. That's due to take place in April next year. Robinhood's hoping to offer American investors access to private companies. It comes against a backdrop of growing excitement about companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX, which are yet to list on the stock market. Pre-IPO shares have long only been available to those who are wealthy or well-connected. Paramount Skydance has been given a week to come up with a best and final offer for Warner Brothers. Netflix had initially won the race to take over the Hollywood giant studio and streaming business, but Paramount, which owns CBS and MTV, has been trying to hijack the deal. Netflix will be given the chance to match the offer that's made. Apple's apparently developing 3 new wearable devices as it makes the shift to AI-powered hardware. Smart glasses, a pendant that can be worn as a necklace, and enhanced AirPods are said to be in the works. The tech giant will face stiff competition from the likes of OpenAI and Meta. Apple's long been accused of being too slow in the AI race, and this video helps explain why.
Ironically, some of the company's notable practices have hindered its own progress. First, spending. Despite having a lot of cash on hand, Apple doesn't do it lightly.
In the AI world, you're investing tens of billions of dollars a quarter, depending on what your company is, without even knowing if you're going to get a payoff. Apple doesn't invest large sums of money without knowing there's going to be a gigantic payoff.
This chart reflects the trend. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta are pouring billions into chips and data centers, to power their AI models and support a business model of providing AI services to others. Apple's expenditures are far less, in part because it's only ever focused on building for itself.
It's almost the end of today's show here on RoxomTV, so let's have a few lighter stories. And we've caught wind of a fascinating scientific study about farting. Scientists from the University of Maryland have developed a pair of smart underwear to keep track of how often someone breaks wind. The device uses electrochemical sensors to track intestinal gas. Assistant Professor Brantley Hall explained why this matters.
Here's the problem. We don't know how often humans fart. Previous studies asked people to estimate, and they guessed between 10 to 15 times a day. But subjective estimations aren't good enough for science. We need objective measurements. We've developed a solution to objectively measure flatus we call the smart underwear. It's a small wearable device that snaps to any type of underwear to capture real-time flatulence patterns. Early testing has revealed something interesting. We found that people farted an average of 32 times per day, not 10 to 15. And we captured some people farting more than 50 times a day, while others only farted once or twice.
Quite a few stories with a food theme now, not all of them pleasant. An Australian restaurant's released footage that appears to show a guest deliberately sabotaging their food. Here are the pictures. Reaching into his armpit and grabbing a hair to put on his plate. It's claimed the Irish tourist was trying to get his family's entire meal for free. They'd run up a £300 bill after having starters, drinks and tomahawk steaks. It's been claimed this stunt has happened at another nearby restaurant and businesses have been told to be vigilant. Meanwhile, a top London restaurant boss is declaring war on influencers. Jeremy King, the mastermind of the Ivy and Caprice, claims TikTokers and YouTubers are entitled and their behaviour is causing him to lose customers.
I don't want to ban anybody from the park, but unfortunately the behaviour of some people coming through the door has gone beyond decency and has become incredibly intrusive. What we've had is a phenomenon of people effectively doing fashion shoots unofficially in the restaurant. Two groups trying to do it on the same staircase and getting irritable when people try to pass through it. We've had as many as 10 influencers and their entourage in the ladies' loo, blocking other guests from coming in and impacting on them, playing music, laying out clothes. There was a tactic where they would order food, not much food, and then when it arrived would depart for downstairs to the loos and then come. We'd have to entice them back up to the table. When they got to the table, they then complained that the food was cold and refused to pay for it.
He's even had to employ security guards to intervene when camera-wielding influencers disrupt other diners, but Jeremy claims some of them have retaliated by bombarding his restaurants with one-star reviews. A weird tradition on the streets of Italy, large crowds have turned up for the Battle of the Oranges, where people throw fruit at each other.
In caso di emergenza, seguite le indicazioni sonore e quello che vi sarà.
It's an event that's stooped in history and celebrates the legend of a miller's daughter who freed people from a tyrant starving the town. Organisers have stressed no food goes to waste because the oranges aren't suitable for sale. It does look painful. They're later collected off the street and used as fertiliser. Now, finally, it was Pancake Day, Shrove Tuesday yesterday. It's traditional, at least here in the UK, to indulge in the sweet treat. The Prime Minister even got in on the action.
Chancellor, I've got something for you.
Oh, very good.
Come in.
You all right?
Very good.
Is this your box?
Happy Pancake Day.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Are you going to have one as well?
I like it. That's what I keep in here.
Very good.
They're the wrong type of pancakes. They're American ones. Now, British pancakes, they're a lot thinner, more like a crepe. Now, Pancake Day, also a chance to show off your skills by tossing them up into the air. Now, Anton, who hasn't really indulged in Pancake Day since moving here from America, he hasn't experienced this. So I had a go last night so we can see what it's all about.
Okay, Connor's going to have a toss. Hey! Good height. Oh, keep going.
That was a good one. I am a professional tosser. That's your show for today. Thanks so much for watching. Do like and subscribe if you can. And remember, you can find us on X at Connor Sephton and at RoxomTV. Thanks to Anton and Kime for keeping the show on the road. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. UK time. That's 6 a.m. in New York, 7 p.m. in Hong Kong. That will be our permanent slot every weekday. Stay tuned. Susie Violet Ward's coming up in about 15 minutes.